no matter how busy you are, no matter what your schedule looks like, there is a way that you can play D&D. Not only is it possible, but I'm going to tell you how you could even play D&D or any other RPG you want every single day. Honestly, I personally had completely given up on the idea of ever rolling dice again until I discovered this new method. If you're like me, you're working a job, you own a business, you're taking care of family, kids, managing your social obligations, the idea of sitting down and carving out 4 to 6 hours a week, even a month, to sit down and play around a table is completely impossible. There's simply no way. Well, there is a solution, and it's called play-by-post gaming, or PBP for short. Play-by-post gaming is actually seeing a resurgence in popularity thanks to new channels like Discord, but it's actually the oldest form of online RPG play. Way back in the early days of the internet, before people actually played D&D over emails and then forums. For you young folks, forums are basically like Reddit, right? You've got a thread, post, blah, blah, blah. I actually did another video about play-by-post, but I wanted to do a bit of a deeper dive here to help you get started in this, which might possibly be new to you, method of gaming. I have found that most D&D players have never heard of play-by-post and they've never considered it, and I really want you to. Really quickly, the concept of PvP is an asynchronous style where you write a text post describing the actions of your characters, then you wait for others to do the same. You're not doing this all together at the same time. This is how you can do a little bit every day. The reason this is absolutely my favorite way to game is because no matter how busy I am, I get to do something every day. Rather than having to wait a month for a big sit-down game session, which, let's be honest, will probably get canceled, rescheduled, or a certain number of people won't be able to attend that day, right? I get to do a small amount of D&D every day. No matter how busy you are, you can spare 15 minutes to write a post and read what other people have done. You can even do this from your phone. Very easy. You can watch my other video where I cover a lot more detail about the pros and cons, but super fast. The pros of play-by-post gaming are there's no scheduling. You just read what the narrator says, you read what the players have posted, then you write your own action. There's no big deal about trying to look at calendars and get everybody together, get everybody into the same place, and all play around a table for 4 to 6 hours uninterrupted, which for busy folks like us, it's not possible. Number 2, it's location agnostic. Again, you're not around a physical table. You don't have to find people in your city to play with. Now, you can play with existing friends and family, but then you also have a much larger pool of players for GMs, DMs, everybody that you can bring together. I've got 2 players that are in the United States where I live, and then I've got 2 others that are in Germany. So it's wonderful that it just gives you a lot more opportunities to find a game and find good people that you can stay connected with. It's writing and narrative focused. So if you like writing, this is a pro, but if you hate it, then it's a con, right? But it's much more fun for me and my players how we get to describe in detail what's happening and really develop the story. Subplots and side quests are also a lot easier. Since you're not all sitting around a table and you don't want to monopolize the time, it's much easier for your character to go off on their own, right? You can do these side quests, and even not, when you write a really long post, you don't have to feel bad describing the combat, describing what your character is thinking. You don't have to feel bad that you're monopolizing the time of everybody at the table, because that's what play-by-post is all about. I feel like it's just a much richer experience of the game. It's what I always craved. Also, there's no voice acting or table awkwardness, right? This is a top benefit for introverts and anybody that suffers from social anxiety or is simply just shy about the idea of, trying to do a different voice or anything like that. Like, we're not all professional actors, right? This, with play-by-post, is a great way to avoid that. For you DMs, GMs, and narrators out there, it is much easier to run a play-by-post game. You can stop, think, plan, and maybe scheme a little bit without people around the table staring at you and waiting to hear what's next right now. You can also play multiple characters. Now, technically you can do this in a live game as well, but it is much, much nicer and easier with a play-by-post game because each character can have separate posts. So if you're running two different characters, those posts have a different avatar. They can have a different post where they're saying things, different dialogue, everything, and then it's separate. It just makes it a lot easier to play multiple characters. And then also you can be in multiple games simultaneously. It's play-by-post. You can log in, you can have multiple different games, bounce around into which characters you're going to play. Obviously, the cons are, the number one con that everybody complains about is it's slow. Unless you're in a duet campaign, which is just one player, one narrator, then likely the fastest posting rate is going to be one post a day from each person. There's games that are even slower than this, but we are always a daily posting game. That's my biggest thing. Another con is there's no in-person interaction. Again, this is a pro or con depending on your perspective. I'll be honest, I do miss a little bit of the camaraderie of friends at a table, but when it's just not possible, then play-by-post is fantastic. And again, personally, as a narrator who has ran multiple D&D games in my life, it is so much less stressful to run a play-by-post campaign. So I do miss that camaraderie about being in person with friends and family and stuff like that, but when it's just not an option, play-by-post is the absolute best. Another con is descriptions can be kind of unclear. Maps help with this a ton, but it's still possible that people can get confused by what's described. And I mean, honestly, that can happen at a live table too, but everybody reads things a little bit differently. Also, it is technologically dependent. It's not as much as you might think, though. The bare minimum requirement is you just need a place to post. That could be email as well, but definitely I don't recommend that. You don't actually have to use virtual tabletops like Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds. You can stick to Theater of the Mind if you want the least technology involved. My game does use Roll20 to handle most of the combats. Most players, they sign in, they see what's there, and then they post their action and move their tokens around as necessary. But again, you do not have to do this. I'll show another option here in a little bit. Combat can be a little bit more difficult. If you're only posting one round a day, combat can take a long time. One way I solve this for my fights is I actually post the monster's armor class and hit points for the players to see. That might freak you out as a narrator, but this is the way I do it, and here's why. This allows the players to describe their hits and misses, plus their damage. It makes the posts a lot more fun to read, and it helps things go faster. Now, honestly, I don't always do this, okay? Sometimes for boss fights, I will keep that information, below the vest here, and I will let them know when they hit. Now, one thing we've done in the past is to get everyone on the virtual tabletop platform and run a combat live, but we never do that anymore, basically. Still, this could be a good option to make combat faster if your group can do this. Maybe you take 1 hour of real time, everybody signs at the same time, you do the fight, and then everything else handled in posts. That's a lot easier to schedule, that's a lot easier to deal with, and again, with virtual tabletops, those can be location independent. But again, not a requirement at all. You don't even have to use maps if you don't want to. Then the last big con is it is hard to find dedicated people. I have joined lots of play-by-post games that just fizzle out. But honestly, the same thing happens in real life games. I feel like it's just part of the hobby with D&D, and play-by-posting isn't immune to this. So you'll just have to try, get involved in the games, and just see which one shakes out, basically. Again, if you're playing with family and friends, this is probably going to be a lot less of a problem. If you've got that old gaming group that you felt like you never get to play with again, try play-by-post, because you might be able to get to see them. Maybe not physically or in person, you're scattered all over the country, right? But you'd still get to game with some of those folks. Now, let me go into some tips and tricks for play-by-post games. I'm going to hide myself and show you my screen. First, there's the pros and cons of play-by-post. You can find this video, which has all those listed out, and then some links to these, which I'm going to go over later. But what I wanted to show you is, first, you have to pick a platform. I have a list in the video description below, and then it's on my website as well if you want to look at the blog. But I'm only going to show you rpl.net, as that's what I use myself. The only thing I don't like about RPL is there's no way to get notifications. It does have a mobile-friendly version of the site, so you can use it on your phone. That might seem insane, but I have written a large number of posts from my phone. This is another one of those awesome things about how you can get a little bit every single day. If you're waiting for a meeting, if you're on a Zoom call that you don't terribly have to pay a lot of attention to, whatever, you can find those 15 minutes a day to just jump on, read the posts, and post your own actions. I might do another video dedicated just to RPOL, but I don't want to go too in-depth here about just one website because there are tons of them out there to choose from. But this is where you'll have to start. Regarding notifications, if you do use RPOL, then, or even if you don't, honestly, it doesn't matter. But when it comes to notifications, one option is to use an instant messaging system for faster communications. You probably won't introduce this until after you've run your game for a while and get to know people, but email, Discord, whatever you feel most comfortable with, even texting if you want to eventually give out your number, but be careful about that, obviously. This is exactly how I run my game. We have 4 players now, plus myself, so we actually have a private Discord server we use only for discussion. We also let people know on Discord when we've posted, and this fixes the RPOL notification problem. You don't have to do this at all, but again, it's one of the things that you can do. You could also just email people, text people, whatever works out for you. It's just really nice to have the Discord server where we have really quick interactions. It notifies us on our phone when somebody acts and posts and stuff like that. If you want to use a virtual tabletop, there are dozens out there. Again, you don't have to do this. Personally, I use Roll20 for big combats, but we also use Theater of the Mind for smaller ones. And you can actually do something that's a really simple text grid. Here's what one of those looks like. There is a post on RPOL. I will link directly to this in case you're using the website where you can find these. You can just click the quote button and then boom, it'll pull in all of the code. And what you do is you just put X's in the boxes basically and say, here's where the one bad guy is, here's where the player is. You can use letters and it makes it really, really simple to do these kinds of just real quick combats in a grid. And let me show you now. We actually find that posting colors for dialogue and then each character actually has their own color really, really helps the readability of the game. So you can see here, Vo is one of our players. She always uses purple whenever she speaks. So you can see it's just regular text, regular black text whenever she's just describing her actions, whatever she's doing. And then when she speaks, it is actually in purple and in quotes. A fun little thing here, when it's in italics, she's actually using her telepathy ability. Scroll down, you can see Julia. Come down here. This is Deacon. Actually, this is one of the NPCs. He summons some Brelanis, but we'll keep coming down. I'll talk about the orange here in just a second, but I just wanted to show you. Here you go. Barash uses his aqua. Talon uses blue, etc., etc. The other thing that we do is we always use orange for out of character stuff. So this can include die rolls, spells that are cast, the round count, questions for the narrator or other players. It just lets people visually separate the character posting, the character talking, and then out of character stuff. For big out-of-character stuff, we also have a completely different thread in our RPOL game that allows people to have the full out-of-character discussions, but then also it's really, really easy for us to use like that Discord channel and stuff like that. Now, one big thing, it is really important that every player and every narrator post moves the story forward. This is something that might be uncomfortable for players who have always been in GM-led games, where you have instant feedback, but it's something you need to get used to, depending on the game, to take a few creative liberties about what's around them, what the NPCs are doing. How far you take this entirely depends on the game you're in, but I give my players a lot of creative leeway. The only major no-no is moving or dictating the actions of another player's character. So NPCs, a lot of times that's okay, but obviously never say, oh, well, and then their character does X, Y, or Z, because you only control your character. And honestly, the worst thing that can happen is a player slightly oversteps or does something wrong, and then you have to do a little bit of a retcon, which just means change what happens, right? However, honestly, since we started our game in 2017, I think I've had to do that maybe 4 times. So it just doesn't come up that often. And again, you'll get more comfortable with this as you do it, as you learn the way that the game is going to be run, as you learn the way that people work around you. My players have invented entire NPCs. They've made up stuff that was plausibly in the room that they wanted to use. They've made some assumptions about what a monster would do in a given situation. So normally, honestly, I love when they come up with this stuff. There are a few times that I've been kind of shocked by their posts, but I almost always just roll with it to allow their creativity to flourish. I'm going to put a list. There's a link to the blog where you can go over and see all of the different sites that are options that I have found. There, let's talk again. We mentioned Discord. I would never run a play-by-post game on Discord. That might work for you, but the benefits of all of the sites that I have listed on here are great. They are wide. Again, I'll do a deeper dive video probably on just RPOL to show you some of the features and tricks and stuff, because I don't think there's any of that out there. But the websites that are dedicated to play-by-posting, it's going to help you find a game, which you can also do that with Reddit, and it's just going to give you a lot of tools like you saw with the icons and stuff that show the characters and the color posting and stuff like that. Those are all features of those. There's tons of virtual tabletops out there. Use whichever one is right for you. There's hundreds of other YouTube videos about that as well. The last thing I want to share is I finally did set up a Patreon account. So if I come back over here, it's d20.pub and ptol.us. It's just patreon.com d20pub. I am putting that in the description. As of right now, I don't expect anybody to do this. I've had several people mention it to me, so I went ahead and set it up. Right now, I don't have any benefits in terms of stuff that I'm going to be doing for it. If you just want to help me out, support me, say thank you for these videos or anything like that, I've got two tiers, $1 a month and $5 a month. My goal is long term. I didn't talk about Tolus in this game at all, but in this video, most of the time in this channel, I talk about Tolus. I am hoping that eventually I will be releasing like Tolus, but also some just D20 content as part of Patreon benefits. So just wanted to throw that out there. If you're super interested in Tolus, check out our Tolus specific Discord channel and check out either one of my websites. I've got d20.pub and ptol.us, where I try to release extra stuff and just anything that I can do to make your all's lives easier and better as narrators and players. I really, really hope that you try out play-by-posting. I have completely fallen in love with this style of gaming. And again, for those of you that are just super, super busy, I feel like this can be a great way for you to get back into the game. Reconnect with some of those people that you used to game with when you were younger, right? Find out if there's a way that they can do this play-by-post gaming. And you can get a little bit of the hobby going again. Even if it takes a really long time for combat, takes a really long time to move the story forward, it's still a blast that I get to play with these folks and that I just get that little bit of gaming every single day. So I hope you have a wonderful, blessed day, and I hope all your dice come up 20. Have a good day.